Welcome back to another episode of Locked In. I'd like to first of all thank y'all and show my appreciation for all of you who watch our videos, subscribe, like, comment. We love to interact with you, so keep continuing to do so. Just thank you for all that, all you guys do. More content will be coming out soon, and today we're going to be talking about Michigan again, but we're also going to be talking about Alabama at the same time because we're talking about Keon Sabb, and if you didn't know, this dude is going to be Alabama's next Caleb Downs, pretty much. He's a safety from Michigan. He didn't play as much at the beginning of the year, but he did play more near the end of the year, specifically in the national championship. Big game against Washington. He played 61 snaps, which ranks seventh amongst their defensive players. So, I mean, pretty impressive. He had a Pro Football Focus score of 79.9, which is, I think, fourth on their defense. So, I mean, had a pretty good game against Washington. Big time football there. Showed his coverage and more of his skills. So, we're going to go through film and see what Alabama's getting in this guy and what exactly Michigan is losing.
Yeah, just to go over some of his stats real quick, they're not necessarily super flashy, but obviously Chance was talking about that national championship game, and he was much more effective in that. The guy had two interceptions this year. One of them he returned for a touchdown. He had 15 solo tackles, 13 assisted tackles. He had a tackle for loss, which we will see that they will utilize him up on the line in more of a backer situation every now and then. And then he had four pass breakups. So not massive numbers, but this is a young guy that did not play a ton of snaps. He played some more, like in the Nebraska game. He had five tackles. In the East Carolina game, he had five tackles. And then he had, three. So he had some time spent, but obviously, and the biggest stage, he had his biggest role where he played, I think, the most snaps of his year this year, and he did really well. So this is a young guy who has a ton of potential, as you'll see on the film. Who I think, he definitely went under the radar just because he was just not one of the big names of this Michigan defense, but he was coming into his own right to be the next one. And unfortunately for Michigan, he will not be there. But we do have a lot of Michigan film to go over. The first two plays we have are his interceptions. They're worthy of watching. The first one against Minnesota, it's already a blowout, obviously, but
So, yeah, you just see him hovering right there in their zone against Minnesota and just pick this ball off, just absolutely staring down that quarterback. And that's what we love to see in zone coverage.
yep, he's
Read
just
them
playing robber.
quarterback's eyes, keep everything in front of you. And it makes a pretty athletic play coming down because, I mean, that's a high ball right there trying to be thrown above him and makes a jump for it and gets it.
Just sitting in the spot, reading quarterback's eyes, playing robber, looking to see if he can get a pick, and he does. Returns it for a touchdown. So I mean, not I get it was to him, but it was a very athletic play, and he did a good job of identifying where the quarterback wanted to go.
Say this time you'll see him over top in coverage and just
Hmm.
tracks the ball really well, plays really tight in his coverage, one on one there, and wins it. And something to be said about it. A lot of people, when you get in them one on one situations, like we've talked about with Will Johnson, just can't get their head turned around to track and locate the ball. So there's a lot of people that can't do that, at least at an elite level, and this guy's tracking level looks to be pretty elite. And I just think that's something to be noted.
Underthrown balls in one-on-one situations are actually very difficult for DBs. A lot of times you'll see pass interference calls on them, just based on kind of the DB's alignment. He does a good job here. Chance is talking about getting his head around, looking for the ball, and even great DBs sometimes struggle to do this, which you just alluded to. But he has his head turned around. He sees the receiver kind of holding up. He gets back to look at the ball, sees where it's dropping, and does a really good job of. He doesn't really contact with the receiver any. He comes up and almost like returns this as if he's catching a punt. This is a deep shot that he sees, gets underthrown, does a really good job of adjusting to it, getting his feet right, and then has a nice little return here too. So that's some impressive stuff from a young guy that doesn't get a ton of snaps, at least at the beginning of the season. But those times and those valuable reps, like I know those two clips were in blowouts already. So obviously he's getting in second team reps, get the young guys some experience. Well, getting young guys experience pays it off because for whatever reason and I actually don't know at this like current moment what that full reason was. I think there might have been an injury to one of the safeties in the Alabama game, maybe, but his number was called where he played the seventh most defensive snaps out of the whole Michigan defense in the national championship game. So those reps matter, and they ended up mattering a ton to the fact that he played a great game against Washington.
Yeah. So if you couldn't tell, this dude's athletic. He's a lanky guy. He's 6'1", 6'2", depending on which team you ask, between Michigan and Alabama, and about that 208, 210 range weight wise. And he calls at least half or one side of their defense every play, if not the entire defense playing at that safety position. You usually have to be smart to do that, especially at Michigan. You have to be very smart and aware in their defense. And you just see him call the defense, and he knows that like he tells his DBs, hey, get up right there. And after the play, uh, gets in motion. He even gets up, and you watch his closing speed to come down on the run. So moving to the SEC, this will be very impactful since there's a lot of run and a lot of toss
Mm-hmm.
plays, especially from Georgia. So that closing speed to get up on the line is very important. And he comes fast, he comes hard, and that running back gets a few yards, but he puts a stop to it right there.
So all of that is great. Obviously, when you're looking at a guy, you would like to see him hit lower instead of meet this guy as high as he does. And we're gonna have another example of him hitting high. But again, this is a young dude who doesn't have a ton of reps. So you put him in the national championship game. He's got to play some pretty meaningful snaps and some pretty difficult ones. So you expect to see him work on his tackling angle and his positioning of his body on where he's making contact. You were going to see him get lower, but that is a nitpick of a guy who made a great play from the safety position coming up and stopping. I mean, this is a 4 or 5 yard gain rather than something bigger. So I guess 6, but it's a good job by him recognizing and then the closing down speed to get to that ball carrier. If he makes a good form tackle, that's like a 2 yard gain or a 3 yard gain. So impressive stuff, even with the missed tackle.
Yeah, you'll see him up here again in that safety position. So they played two a lot in the national championship, and he's kind of sitting there reading, and he sees that running back goes out, and he's looking at the quarterback with his eyes, and he crashes down, and crashes with 1 yard of a
Yep.
gain where he hits him. And if he just hits him low, like that's the only nitpicky thing that we could call out, in my opinion. So if he just hits him low, that's dead. 1 yard gain on 3rd and 5. So that's a great stop, defensive stop right there. They get off the field. But he goes high, and Bernard's he's a tough runner for Washington, and he gets off. So that's all you can really say.
So tackling leaves something to be desired, but obviously he's got time to work on that. Him being Alabama, he will have plenty of coaching to get that corrected. But the biggest thing, I guess, is the instincts that he has and the way that he uses his eyes and recognizes what's going on in front of him, and then the closing speed and the instincts to get down to it. And like we're talking about, if he breaks down here and makes a better form tackle, this is a very, very good stop. He did everything right except for that last 5% of actually making the tackle, but everything else was great. And you expect a guy like this with this kind of talent to improve on that tackling going forward.
Yeah, he has all the intangibles, and he's a very smart player. He's very aware. As you can see, he's over here giving Will Johnson a call out again. Turns out to be a pretty nice call out. Um, and then you'll see that running back come over. He's telling him, "Hey, go down." He's like, "I'm over top. You just play down on it," and ends up, putting Will Johnson in a position to get a pick, which is very influential in the game.
Yeah, we obviously glow. We talk very glowingly about Michigan's defense and the way that it all works together, playing team defense and people sticking to their responsibilities. That way, everybody can rely on each other. And then the other thing about them is just the communication among the defensive players, especially the defensive backfield. You see corners and safeties and outside backer types. You see all of them communicating with each other. So you'll see corners talking to safeties, safeties talking back, safeties give a call, corner recognizes something and he'll say something back out of or with emotion or obviously some audible that we can't hear, But then right there, right before that play is snapped, he's telling him, "Hey, I have you over top here. Sit down on this because it might be coming this way." And that gives the ability for this pick. And this is a massive point in the game. And I mean, right as this second half starts, Penix and Washington are looking for a tying score here to really get some momentum going in the second half. And instead, it goes the other way. And obviously, great pick, great play. But Keon Sabb is the reason why this can happen because he gives that confidence to stay up in that lane because he's over top.
Yeah. So I mean, one of them guys that can run a defense, and that's what Alabama lost out on with Caleb Downs. And you'll see him this time, as we all know, Caleb Downs, he can play anywhere on the field. Well, so can Keon Sabb. You have him here. He's honestly doing a blitz here. They're going zero with their man. You'll see him and the other linebacker come down crashing. And, one thing to point out is that as soon as he sees Penix not give this ball off to the running back, he
Changes
immediately turns his body angle to go out on that running back in case it's a screen. So, I mean, the awareness right there is off the charts.
Yep, just good instincts, good eyes. You can see him, on his track. He's right there. He sees that Penix kept the ball. He plants that foot and he turns his body the other way. He makes contact with the H just for a second. Yep, fights across it. Now, obviously, that's kind of slowing up in case that guy's doing anything. Plus, it's like just a little, shove block by the H back. But then he's watching Penix see what he does, and he gets outside to his guy just in case, stays with responsibility. So it's good recognition, good instincts, and you like to see a guy who's it's kind of like a disengagement from what track you were on. Michigan does this with their pass rush or their blitzes, where like a lot of your interior guys keeping your pass rush lane secure. You got guys who are getting towards the quarterback. You got guys who are closing down in on it. But then whenever there's a time where a quarterback might have a second option, with a either quarterback run escaping out of the pocket or a check down route, something for him just get to quickly to affect the play and hopefully get some yards out of. A lot of times you'll see Michigan's DTs and then linebackers who are on pass rush get off of their mark, disengage, and then go try and take away the new avenue for the quarterback to make a play. And that's exactly what he does here. It's not thrown, but it's still covered by him.
So, yeah, this guy can pretty much play anywhere on the field. Here you're going to see him roll into that one safety, and he called the entire defense with what he had for the setup, and he gets back looking at the whole field, and he sees that quarterback look right, and he looks right, and then he sees him look left, and he shifts his body left, flips his hips 2 times, and gets over top of that route. He might not have been able to make a ball. He could have, but his closing speed is so good, and his pursuit angle is so good that either way, that's not going to be a touchdown. He's going to be there to at least get the tackle.
Yep, you like his steps here. It's just back pedal. He sees Penix kind of zero in a little bit more on his left, Penix is right. So he starts flipping those hips in case that deep route.
And then he sees Penix flip,
yep.
and he immediately flips.
Sees the Penix flip, and then also he commits fully to running full speed down as Penix releases the ball. So he doesn't want to be tricked by another look off or a pump fake. So he doesn't want to fully commit down because if he does, he's 3 steps, got to return the other way. So he makes sure that Penix releases that ball before he turns his head. And as soon as it happens, then he identifies. Actually, I want to go back and
look at his head
eyes.
go up. Yeah, his head goes up to track the ball.
So he's watching Penix. He sees Penix. He's throw it. Ball's out of his hands. Immediately, he looks over he identifies where the receiver is and where he's going.
Then
he
looks
tracks
up for the ball.
Yep. Then he identifies where the ball is so he can track to where he needs to go and then back to his spot. So now, I mean, it wasn't a completion. It was a slight overthrow. Would he made a play? Would he not? At least he would have made a tackle. But the fact that his eyes are constantly moving to the right places, he's watching Penix through and through. He sees Penix throw the ball. Okay, I can commit to this. Where's the receiver? Okay, I got my receiver. Where's the ball? Where am I going? He does all of those things within about a second and a half, 2 seconds. And in the meantime, while he's processing all this, he is running full speed to the spot that he needs to get to as far as the right angle to possibly affect this play if a catch is made. So you again, some of these plays, they're very under the radar because he's not making the play. The ball's not caught or the ball doesn't go to his side, but he is in position and doing all the right things. If it were to go his way, he's done the right thing. And I think that's what's so impressive about him. He's a young guy who's getting most of his snaps in this game, and yet he plays really, really well.
Yeah, and I think that a part of it is, I think he got a lot of snaps because they knew what Washington was coming into this game. So they knew they was going to pass the ball a lot, and he's a big coverage guy. He's great in coverage, makes a lot of call outs here. You see him talking the whole time, calling his side of the field, even telling Moore over here what to do. And, it's just pretty impressive that, he might not be a freshman like Caleb Downs, but he's a young guy. He's very inexperienced. And, he's still making calls and he's very athletic. And he's great in coverage. And, that's probably why he's a big part. He had a big role and part in this game.
Mm.
That breakup ability, his hand placement is, honestly second to none, breaking up passes. And I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily say that, he's in a good position to make a play on this ball. He's just so athletic. His closing speed is so fast that he's able to come down from behind and get his arm over at the last second to make a play on it.
Typically, when the way Michigan plays their defense, you see them have a guy,
Come
you
up,
know,
Saints
under,
drill
yeah,
will
you
come
either have a
up,
guy underneath following him through,
or
or you
this
have him,
linebacker.
yes, or you have him get in the pass lane. And honestly, you don't see that here. The linebackers kind of get lost. You can see the way that he's looking. This
Yeah,
is the
he
guy that
knows.
he
Yeah.
messed up here because he's supposed to be in the way of this to make this a very hard throw, and that way that helps the safety who's at the back of it make a play if it is a catch. But instead, he gets a little bit lost here. You can see, the pre-snap that we played, there was a lot of communication, so there's just a mistake that was made in that communication. So this is just an athlete making a good play.
Yeah, I'll
He's like,
say
go ahead.
Keon knows he's supposed to be over here over top of this guy as well. So does the other defenders, because I mean that guy is wide open.
Yep.
But Keon, he has a really good awareness to see Penix looking that guy down, and he must have watched a lot of film because he sees him look Penix look that off and just look inside tracking that guy, and he goes down on it.
Right. So this is obviously this is one of the a breakdown in the Michigan's pass coverage because you see both of these safeties are turned the way towards this route, and neither of them are up here in this spot where Levitt is streaking down the field. And you also see the pass off on the underneath guys. You see him point like, "Hey, you have my back over here, right?" And he locks in on this target because he sees Penix do the same thing. If Penix had waited a little bit more, scanned the field, he would have realized that the safety. I mean, he can see right from this positioning that number 9 is going to take this over the top. I have separation here. I can make this throw.
Oh
But
yeah,
if
that still looks like a completion though. Even with
yeah,
Keon
for sure.
Sabb, I mean that's still a completion
And
because you
I mean,
got
even
the
from
Saints
this,
still coming down.
yes, you got more blue jerseys on 11 in the still frame that Penix like, okay, this is my throw here. So then that's what he makes. He sees that separation. That's plenty of separation for how Penix throws the ball and how his receivers catch it. Like this is a completion. And then Keon Sabb just makes a heck of a play and then stabs
That
down at the ball, showing great hand-eye coordination and accuracy when it comes to those pass breakup
I'll
abilities.
say his rip through over
Yes.
top. That's very, very, very impressive. He's a very strong guy. Is what I'd just say with that as well. So, but his closing speed makes all the difference here.
And this is a another Michigan miscommunication at the
I'll
end of the
say they
game.
just subbed out like
Yep.
8 players, and all these guys just subbed in.
We're just sitting here in
And
the middle of the field having a discussion.
yeah, and and Michigan just snaps the ball, or Washington snaps the ball, and you have like you have your safeties over top, of course, and more looks like a cover 2 look with their corners playing back off, um, kind of like a shell coverage, and you just see him make an absolute play over the middle of the field with another breakup to a tight end who is honestly very good in possession, and I mean, something to be said. That ball is right there in his chest, and for him to still be able to break that up, I mean, that says something a lot about your hand placement and your ability to strike. Because
Yep.
I mean, this guy is aggressive and he strikes. You could see it when he went down on them screens or them flat routes, and you see that in the run game as well. So I mean, aggressive guy. You're going to see that in his pass breakups as well.
So there's obviously something very glaring here we've already talked about that I really don't like, and it's how he hits this tight end, which is standing up. Which you don't like that, because let's say this is a catch, the tight end tucks it and turns around. Is this going to be a tackle? Well, you would think so, but he hits him high. Maybe the tight end gets away from him. Regardless, that we've already talked about that, and that's clearly a point that he needs to get better at. But the technique of wrapping and punching out at the same time, he keeps one hand, he makes contact, with his shoulder and chest. He puts one hand wrapped around to help him make a tackle, and he goes with the other hand to stab down at the ball to try and make a pass breakup. Because obviously, you want that incompletion more than you want the tackle, but you also want to make sure that you will make the tackle if you go in for the pass breakup doesn't work. You need both things to happen. And a lot of coaches, they'll tell you, hey, I'd rather you just make sure you make the tackle, because I will take a completion over a touchdown. And he does the right thing, which is I can make this tackle and I can go for the ball. And he does it beautifully. So even though he makes contact poorly, the initial contact is poor because it's high and it's not, it's just not the right position that you want, especially not for a DB hitting a tight end over the middle. He still does a great job of getting one hand around to wrap and one hand through to the ball to try and stab it out and fight for it, and then also make a tackle after if that ball is still caught. So great technique with the pass breakups, and just when the ball's in the air, he just has a really great ability to track the ball and track his receiver and know what he needs to do in those passing situations. Obviously, he's going to need to get better at the actual tackling, especially in the SEC. If he's going to play more in the box like he can do, you want to see him be a normal tackler, like just have better approach to his tackles, have better angles with his tackles. But overall, there is a whole lot to like about this guy. So I am sure that the Michigan people who know him are sad about losing him, but Alabama people, y'all should be very happy about getting this guy. I'm not. Chance made the comparison to Caleb Downs. I'm not going to throw that out there quite yet because I want to see what this guy does in the SEC. But he is a great replacement for him because he shows a lot of the same stuff and playing the same position. I think that you're going to get a lot of use out of Keon Sabb.
Yeah, and there's something else to be said about that. Look who he's playing here with Michigan. They're playing Washington. Where's Alabama's coach from right now, Kalen DeBoer? He's
Mm-hmm.
from Washington. So, you got to be thinking that Kalen DeBoer saw this guy
Yep.
absolutely devastate
Yeah.
Washington.
He beat us. I want him.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Like, if I can't have Caleb Downs, who's the next best guy to get? That's Keon Sabb, and that's pretty much what he did, is what it looks like. So, I mean, we started the off season after Saban left, and we were everybody else along with us was Alabama. What's going to happen? And I mean, there's still a lot of questions, but you got to think that Kalen DeBoer is running that ship over there pretty well, and he has them poised to be successful this coming up year. Get a quarterback in Austin Mack to play in his offense, along with a new tight end that they also added, along with Keon Sabb. Even with all the players that they lost, Mari Niblack, Caleb Downs, they're just replacing them, and debatably better for the way that DeBoer likes to run his schemes. So, there's a lot to be said for it. I just think that Alabama's going to have their team built up this year. It'll look like a different Alabama, but it could look like a better Alabama. It'll at least look very different.
Yep. I'm excited to see the new Alabama team. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Kalen DeBoer, so I hope he does a great job there. And I also, I'm rooting for Bama to get through all the adversity and look really good this season. Like Chance said, it'll probably look pretty different in a lot of aspects, but I do expect them to still have a great showing in the SEC and on the national stage. I mean, I guess a drop off should be or will be expected, but I don't expect that drop off to be too bad. And when in regards to this video in particular, Keon Sabb is a fantastic get for Alabama. I think he's going to massively help their defense and be a leader on that team next year going forward.
Yeah. That being said, though, I hope anybody who's still here enjoyed the video. Um, I know it's a little different, for an Alabama video since we're not really trashing on some player. Um, RTR, of course, roll tide roll, but but I think Alabama's poised to have a good run next year, and we'll see how it goes. We are rooting for them. We're not totally against them, as some of you may think, but hopefully it works out for both Michigan and Alabama. So only we'll know after the season or during the season. With that being said, though, for us here, stay locked in, everyone.